Alright, we're going to take a look at creating a U-bracket design today. We're going to start out by creating a sketch on the XZ plane. I'm going to rotate that till the top view shows up correctly. We're going to grab a slot, which is under the rectangle, and we're going to use a center point slot. I'm just going to start down here on the below the origin someplace, doesn't really matter. Drag up, there's our simple slot. Now we're going to dimension that slot so we have an exact size. So from the midpoint to the origin, we're going to set that to 0. The length of this slot, we need to come over here and find the center point. Go to the opposite center point, pull up. We want this to be 5 inches. Then from the origin to one of the center points, doesn't matter which one, 2.5 is the number we're looking for. That way we're centered up on the origin. Lastly, we want to grab a radius dimension here and set that to 1. And if we look down here in the corner, we're fully constrained. Now I'm going to come up here and grab my circle tool. And I'm going to type in a 1/2 inch diameter circle. Go ahead and finish that sketch. I want to extrude 1/2 inch. Choose the part, set OK. Next thing I want to do is create an arc here in the center. So to do that, I'm going to create another sketch. I'm going to look for a plane that runs through the center vertically, and right there it is with the XY plane. So I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to come up to View, Visual Style, and go to Wireframe. Come back to the Sketch tab. I'm going to use an arc center point to create this arc. I'm going to click the origin, drag out, and type in 1.75 and press enter. And I'm just going to come around here from X axis to X axis to create that arc. I'll use my line tool to tie these together. If we hit escape, we can look down here in the corner and see that we're still fully constrained, which we're always looking to do now. I'm going to hit extrude. I want to do a distance of 2.5 inches, and I want to do that symmetrically and hit OK. If you want to, we can come up here to View, Visual Style, and Shaded with Edges and take a look at our part now. The next sketch is going to take place on this face right here. And we're going to hit the drop down arrow and grab our rectangle and create a rectangle of arbitrary size on the X axis. Grab our dimension tool, and we're going to dimension it to be 1 inch high and 2 inches wide. And from the origin to one of the edges of the rectangle should be 1 inch, so it's centered. Finish, extrude. We're going to cut distance all and hit OK. Next sketch is going to be a sketch on the top of this rectangular surface here, so we can grab it just by clicking. Excuse me. I'm going to go back to View, Visual Style, Wireframe so I can see my origin marker. Grab a circle tool and create a 1/4 inch diameter circle. See Finish Sketch, extrude that, and we're going to cut it, distance all, and hit OK. Come back to View, Visual Style, Shaded with Edges. There's our finished part. To clean this up, I'm going to come over here and close my origin folder, click pause, and click on each extrusion and rename it. So this would be the base. Click pause, click, and this would be, if you click too fast, it'll bring up the edit feature thing. So click pause, click a little slower. This would be our main body. Click pause, click, and this would be our rectangular cut. So I'm going to abbreviate that, watch on the screen there. Click, pause, click, and this will be our center underscore drill. So that would be our hole that's bored through the top here. The main reason of doing this drawing is to learn the difference between parents and childs in Inventor, and they refer to this as parent and child, so keep that in mind when you go to take the Autodesk Inventor certification test later this spring. So the difference meaning, so say this gets sent off, an engineer declines it because this design needs to be an arc instead of a rectangle in here. So we come back into our program and we just want to suppress this because we don't want to get rid of that hole. When we go to suppress it, it does get rid of that hole because this is a child, this is a parent. The center drill hole is dependent upon that rectangular surface and that face we chose when we created the sketch. So you got to be careful that going forward where and how you draw stuff. If you reference a plane, it'll show up. So let's just go ahead and prove that by creating another sketch. We're going to modify our design here from the engineer by creating a arc. So it's going to be 1 1/4. Okay, we're using that center point arc tool again. Bring that back around to the x-axis and closing this off. Okay, we're going to finish the sketch. We're going to extrude it. We're going to cut distance all. Hit OK. So there's our design changes the engineer people wanted. But we still need that center drill hole. So I'm going to come back over here to the model tree, right click that center drill hole and hit delete, because it's no longer a valid feature because it is suppressed with the rectangular cut. So to draw that properly, I'm going to create another new sketch. Come to my origin, I'm going to choose the XZ plane because it's running flat underneath the part. And we'll use that as our reference surface this time. So I got to come up to View Visual Style and put on wireframe mode so I can see the origin. And I'll grab my circle tool and put that 1/4 inch diameter circle back in place. Extrude, I'm going to do a cut distance all, not between. Make sure you choose all. Can't get it. There we go. And hit OK. Back up to View Visual Style and do Shaded with Edges. And now we'll see that circle is back there where it belongs. And to prove that, let's come over here and rename our extrusion. So circular cut. That's the design change. Then we're going to rename this extrusion 6 to the center drill. There we go. Now if we come in here and suppress our circular cut, back to the original part, but we can see that there's still a hole, and it's drilled the whole way through this. Okay, but if we turn on the rectangular cut now, we still have that hole. Nothing's changed. So that's the difference between a parent and a child, and sometimes that's handy to use. If you're suppressing something temporarily just to draw something else, then you're going to turn it back on. You don't need to watch this so much, but if you're having multiple designs within one part, like we are here, you want to pay attention to whether you're drawing off a reference surface or whether you're drawing off a plane. So keep that in mind. So we're going to go ahead and save this now. I'm going to turn back on the circular cut and suppress that rectangular cut. If you have them both on, it just kind of looks funny. Also, before we save, forgot, when you come in here and set a material, so we're going to choose Tools, Material, and come in here and choose Aluminum 6061 to be machined in the machine shop. I'm also going to come in here, I can adjust the physical properties, either the thermal, which isn't that important, or the mechanical. Say this is a specialized piece of aluminum, you can mess with these settings here based on the piece of aluminum that you're going to order in. But in our case, we're just going to bump up the glossiness level under the appearance to a 50. Alright, when you hit Tab or you click off of the 50, you'll see the part gets a little bit shinier or has a higher polished finish. I'm going to apply those settings, hit cancel and close out of my materials editor. So that is what they spec'd out for this U-bracket design. Alright, so it's a high polish finish, so it more than likely will show on the outside of the piece that this is going to go on. So now we'll go ahead and save this. Call it the U-bracket design in your CAD folder. Hit save. I already had one, so I'm just replacing my design. I'm going to come in here and create a new drawing. Hit OK through that error message. I'm going to place some base views. Make sure that we start out with a front view. If you need to, you'll have to change here on the orientation, but it should be set to front if you follow my directions. And I'm going to create an isometric view. After you do that, I'm going to right click and choose Create. Instantly, I'm going to come in here and right click on the isometric view and say Edit. Choose the scale drop down and scale that 2 to 1 so it's a little bit larger for detail purposes, and I'm going to shade it so they can see that in fact this is a high polish finish here. More than likely there would be some sort of design note written out as well to talk about the glossiness and the high polish finish. The next two steps are just retrieving the dimensions from our drawing. This is why you don't want to delete your dimensions when you create the part file, and you always want to make sure you're fully constrained like I referenced there several times throughout the drawing. So I'm going to retrieve dimensions, select the dimension, come in here and take a look at these dimensions that are given, and we drew these correctly. Here's our radius, and we got some other stuff, but none of these are going to show up like we want them to. So I'm going to cancel out of that and manually dimension this by coming over to Annotate, grab my dimension tool, and I'm just going to throw some radius dimensions on here that look proper. I'm going to dimension both of those circles. There we go. That's all that base view needs. We'll show everything else here on this top view. I'm going to hit Escape, come up here, right click, and retrieve the dimensions from this view. And now we can get most of our sizes. So we're going to have our length of the part, the distance from the center of the circle to the center of this 1/4 inch circle, the height or the width of the part, the size of that inner circle, the size of these bigger circles. We only need to choose one, and then the size of the slot here. Hit apply, cancel. Now I'm going to grab these dimensions that are inside the part and pull them outside the part, which is standard procedure. Grab this little guy here and pull him out. I might center this up here a little bit more so it looks nice. There we go. This one looks pretty good. Last thing we can do, hit escape off of that. Last thing we can do is come in here and add some center lines to this. We can do that by clicking on this center marker button, choosing the edge of the circle. There we have a center line, center line, center line. That looks a little bit better. And none of these holes are threaded, so we don't need to note anything about that. They're through holes. Okay, last step of this would be to add some info in our title box, and you can do that by using the text tool, drawing a text box and typing, or what I find easier, coming in here to the application eye, going to eye properties, summary tab, and here you can enter a title. So U dash bracket would be the design. The person that drew this, they call it the author, even though it says drawn by down here. I'm going to edit that to say your name. It should have your student ID here. Just put your name in there because I don't have everybody's student IDs memorized. Come to the project tab. You can change the date if you need to override the current date, which is fine for this. We can leave the current date that you draw this. And you could input any of this other information as, say, the company wants. So the vendor, maybe where you're getting the metal from, the engineer that approved the design, any kind of project numbers or some sort of description, part number. And the same here with the status. You can come in here and check dates that stuff was approved if need be, but we're going to leave it simple and just change the title and the author. Hit apply and close. We can see that we now have a title. We have our name here instead of a student ID, and we can save this out.